Good morning, everybody. This is Arun Wadvani from Ingram Microcloud. Good morning. Thank you for joining today's webinar, where we're going to give you an update on Modern Workplace or Microsoft 365. Joined with me today is Robert Crane, who's an MVP, a Microsoft Most Valuable Player, and I'm sure many of you have heard from Rob before. He always gives us some great insights. So we're pleased to have him here today. I'll just kick things off just by doing this introduction. I'll hand over to Rob, obviously, to give us an update. We always find them very insightful, so I'm always keen to hear the latest updates. After that, we'll just do a quick Q&A session. Feel free to throw any questions you've got into the chat box. We'll answer those at the end of Rob's session. Then after that, I'll take you through a quick update on the cloud marketplace. If you haven't seen it before, we're actually really excited by what we call now User Experience 1. So we've actually made a number of changes to the look and feel of the marketplace, which I'll just quickly show you some of those new screens. And then from there, obviously how to buy and any promotions and offers we're running this month. And we'll go from there. So Rob, I'll just see if you're there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. Rob, welcome aboard. Thank you. I'll hand over to you and we can kick off from here.
Okay, all right. So hopefully I can get control of the screen there and click along. If not, I'll just get Arun to move the slides along. All right, so why don't we start off, Arun, if you can just go forward a slide for me. I'll just get you to go to next for me. Just click next or push the down arrow key.
All right, try now. Just try again.
Try again. No, just push the down arrow key.
Okay.
Okay, so no worries. So the agenda for today will be, obviously, we're going to focus on looking at the Microsoft 365 product. Now, this product has been in market now approaching 2 years. It is certainly the focus of the way that Microsoft wants you to think about selling the product, because it is additional features and functionality on top of Office 365, especially around device management and security. We'll also mention and talk about the opportunity that it gives partners, obviously more services, give you the opportunity to manage more things for your client, take the load off them, and also look at managing common devices that are now becoming more and more part of everyday life. We'll do some comparisons to what we see already in the existing Office 365 space, so you'll know the differences between the two offerings, and then we'll obviously jump into the Ingram Microcloud Marketplace, give you an idea of what's involved in getting up to speed and using the product and ordering it through the portal there. Next slide, please. Okay, so the reason that we need to look at something like Microsoft 365 Business these days is that technology is now a key component of just about every business. It's a core component and is a critical component. So without technology, without things like email, without files and folders, many businesses can't operate effectively. Now, to operate effectively, they need to invest in technology because it is a tool that helps them operate their business efficiently. And a lot of this means that businesses now need to appreciate that the most important and secure way to stay relevant in businesses today is to always make sure that you are keeping up with technology. The other challenges that we've got also is that a workforce today is much more mobile than it ever used to be. Less and less people actually go into the office on a regular basis and work 9 to 5. Many people, again, are working on the way into work, on the train, also when they go to meetings, they're working from home. How do we protect that information? How do we make sure that it's secure? How do we make sure that the information is, again, managed in a way that the business dictates? That then rolls into protecting sensitive data because, again, we now have laws like the disclosure laws that we have in Australia, the GDPR, that means that there is now a legislative requirement to make sure that information from customers is protected in a way. Now, the last thing, obviously, is we're seeing an ever-increasing threat landscape. We're seeing more and more attempts to not only get into users' information, but also trick users into giving up their login and their password so they can be used against them, or it can be used to launch additional attacks. Now, these attacks are very sophisticated. They're very well crafted, they're targeted at all sorts of users, and that threat is going to simply continue to increase. So we need to be able to protect that. So again, we're seeing a lot of changes around the environment that we need to accommodate for businesses, both large and small. Next slide, please.
I've given you control now, Rob, so hopefully this time.
All right, so I'm clicking. There we go. All right, so what happens?
Good.
I've clicked and we'll see what happens. So one of the biggest changes, though, is not only the landscape, is also the people that we deal with. So again, we've got a large and diverse amount of people from different age groups working in our businesses today. We have millennials, we have people who have grown up with traditional files and folders. We have people who are using other operating systems besides Windows. We've got, like I said, iOS, we've got mobile devices. We have to be able to accommodate all these users and keep them secure and give them an environment in which they are productive and they continue to be productive throughout the business. So this is one of the biggest challenges that we face because, again, we've moved from a world where it is typically device-centric. So you protected the devices that were inside an environment that were connected to a physical file server on a physical cable, to a world now where we have users basically roaming just about anywhere that are connected to the internet and want to be able to access their information on just about any device. So we face a large number of challenges managing, maintaining, keeping those people secure and also keeping them up to date. So the reality again is, as I've noted here, that a large amount of time is spent in our SMB clients is collaborating. Now, they collaborate internally. They've been doing that for years, but what we see now is a growth in their requirements to collaborate with external parties. So you have project managers who need to liaise with architects. You have designers who need to liaise with printers and so on. How do they do that? How do they do that securely? Now, collaboration in the good old days meant that typically we just sent people an attachment and we worked by email. Today, that's not the case. We need to incorporate things like chat. We need to incorporate meetings. We need to incorporate things, again, like email, but the whole gambit of collaboration abilities. And that means that that needs to be provided internally as well as externally and to be made as easy as possible and, again, as secure as possible. And again, as noted, that 37% of our workforce is growing in the mobile space, which means that they typically are accessing this on the go. They're accessing it out of normal office hours. They are accessing it from mobile devices, from coffee shops, from all sorts of locations. Again, this makes it difficult to secure. This makes it difficult to track and control, again, because those users aren't in a single physical location. Now, that expectation of growth in mobility is going to continue, so more and more users are going to expect to be able to access their information anywhere on any device. Also, as mentioned, is the growth in the cyber attacks. So we're seeing things like spray attacks. We're seeing things like targeted phishing attacks. We're seeing basically malware being delivered by standard attachments, PDFs, documents purporting to be Dropbox and from Office 365 that users click on and then give out their credentials or are tricked into giving out their credentials. Attackers then use that to gain access to users' account and then use that as reconnaissance to further determine information about the organization, and then particularly may ask for payments or use that as a leverage to attack others from that compromised account. Now, a lot of this comes on the back of the challenge that many customers today are in the mentality that what they have is good enough. They are still using Windows 7 because they can. They're still using Windows 2010 because they paid for it 7 years ago and don't see the value in upgrading. Many still have older back-end systems like SBS 2008, and they're also spread across a range of PCs, devices that, again, give that fragmentation. Part of it also is that if the users don't have the ability to achieve what they need to be productive, they will step outside the traditional environment. If they don't like using a VPN solution or they find that too difficult, then they're going to use something like Dropbox or G Drive or whatever to achieve their aim. Now, having corporate information outside a controlled environment should be a worry for any business. but users really just want to get their job done. So we need to make sure that the systems that they have are current, that they're up to date, they also have the latest features to allow them to be productive. And again, consistency across an organization is going to improve the manageability and the security. And we also need to make sure that we monitor and minimize, I would suggest, non-sanctioned third-party apps that have corporate information on it. So it's certainly a challenging environment. There's a lot of diversity out there, and part of it is to have a strategy that you can go to customers and say, as your IT provider, this is the best solution. This is the best option we recommend. This is going to reduce your costs by making things consistent, by bringing things up to date, by looking at the technology as a tool to get your job done and also improve the productivity inside the business. Because again, people who don't see the value fail to see the benefits that the technology will give them. Typically, they just need to understand the benefits it will provide them and the savings it can make in their business. So again, from an IT provider's point of view, you're typically dealing with multiple technical products. You may have a independent third-party technical solution. You may have Office 365. Again, you have users who want to access things on their mobile devices, but the business wants to control where that information goes. They want to prevent users from sharing that using things like consumer-grade emails and file sharing technologies. And a lot of the technologies we see, especially around hardware, have become a race to the bottom. It's become a commodity item. So a user can typically go out and buy a commodity item from a shopping mall these days, come back, and their expectation is to have that work in the environment that they have. So again, this is where it's important to step in and basically let users know and give them the vision. So look at it as a challenge to be proactive rather than being reactive, to going to a customer and saying, these are the reasons why we're moving to this sort of environment. This is the reason that we want to look at getting you up-to-date modern hardware. These are the benefits that it does provide. So again, there are lots of complexities, but with complexity also comes the challenges, and importantly, also comes the opportunity there. Now, one of the opportunities to solve a lot of these problems and to consolidate a lot of this is the Microsoft 365 product. So in essence, in simple terms, Microsoft 365 is a combination of Office 365, Windows 10, and the Enterprise and Mobility Suite, so the EMS suite. So these three products have been bundled together and are now offered under the banner of Microsoft 365. Now, the next layer down here is to understand that, as with most offerings in Microsoft these days in the cloud, we have an enterprise and a business SKU, also education if you are in that space. And in the enterprise SKU, we have an E5 and an E3, again, which typically map to an Office 365 environment as well. And we have an F1, so that's the frontline kiosk only style worker. That's a really great option for those who aren't sitting in front of a terminal and typically working on a mobile device most of the time. Now, what we'll be focusing on here typically is going to be the Microsoft 365 business SKU, but remember that if the needs of that product aren't suiting the customer that you're talking to, there is enterprise solutions, like I said, around the E3 and the E5 as well, if you want to move in that direction. Now, the great thing about Microsoft 365, when it comes to actually licensing it, there's no upgrade, there's no tenant migration required. Basically, all you need to do is purchase those Microsoft 365 licenses, push them into the tenant, typically via CSP, and then replace their existing license with the new Microsoft 365 license. So again, there's no major work. Apparently, basically, it's just a licensing change within the user's portal once you've purchased those licenses. Now, the challenge here is that we have users who are working with multiple applications. They're working typically with systems based in the cloud, maybe mobile accounting systems, things like Salesforce for their CRM. They're also working with on-premises environments still, so there are files and folders still on there. We need to get this all to work together, and again, we need to manage that across multiple devices. So the user can expects to be able to access that information, their emails, their files, their calendar, their contacts on their mobile device, on their personal mobile device, which they bring into the environment. And then they also would expect to be able to access that just as easily using a corporate-owned device, so a PC that they have been provided, or a desktop that they come and work at during the day. So not only have we got to manage the data, we need to obviously manage the applications inside and outside the organization, and we also need to manage the devices. So again, we are increasing the complexity here of what needs to be managed. So underlying all this is the data. So again, we've got files, folders, contacts, we've got identities, we've got a range of topics that we need to make sure is secured both on-prem and across our devices, and potentially into our third-party SaaS-based applications as well. So it's very important that the concept here is that we've moved from a device-centric world to a user-centric world, where a user will typically be accessing multiple internal and external applications on multiple devices, again, potentially through multiple organizations as well. Now, of course, these all create points that, again, are going to have to be managed, and also sitting outside this environment for our users is typically going to be the threat landscape out there. So we're going to basically have the need to manage this and protect people, again, from the the bad actors who are out there. Sorry, Arun, I seem to have lost the ability to click to the next slide. Can you move to the next slide for me, please?
Sure.
There we go. Seems to...
That work okay?
Yep, it's gone to the next slide. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, the challenge here is that we have the external threats, again, that can be targeted at not only the data, they can be targeted at the user, they can be targeted at those connections. So those, again, unfortunately, are only going to continue to increase. How do we protect ourselves effectively and our users from that said environment? All right, so do you want to click? Oh, there we go. All right. And the idea here is we want to align that all together. The way that we want to do that is to bring that into a simplistic environment that's going to reduce our overheads, going to make it easier to manage, and again, reduce complexity. And the solution that we have for that, again, is going to be the Microsoft 365 business product. Also note there that the trend for most SMBs is going to be moving away from the on-prem environment. We're going to be moving to an environment where many users don't want to have on-premises servers. They don't want to have on-premises infrastructure. They want to have the flexibility to access that from the cloud wherever they are, share that with their team who may be in multiple locations. So again, the trends that we're talking about, mobility, the security, again, only going to increase, and generally we're going to see a decrease in the on-prem environment. So we need to have a product like Microsoft 365 Business that will accommodate all of that for us. Now, at its core, Microsoft 365 Business is going to include Office on the desktop. It's going to give you Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It's going to give you those applications that you've traditionally used and users are comfortable with using on the desktop. It's going to give you shared calendar, emails, shared mailbox, all of that sort of stuff to allow users to do the stuff they've been doing for many years. Obviously, you also get OneDrive for Business. You get a terabyte of storage for every user. You also get SharePoint and Teams, and again, that is the place for shared files location. Now, importantly, we have our data protection. We want to be able to protect our data, whether it is in an email, whether it is in OneDrive, SharePoint, or Teams. We want to make sure that we can designate what's company owned. We want to control where it's going. And we also want some auditing ability on how that is being handled and managed by users. One of the most important things is obviously to keep your local operating system as current as possible on each device that you have, whether that's iOS, Android, or Windows. That really means in the Windows space that we're looking at moving and upgrading to Windows 10. All right, so again, the idea here is that the moving to a Windows 10 environment is going to give us that security, that up-to-date. Again, it's going to make sure that we are as current as possible and have all the latest protections. And speaking of protection, we've got to make sure that we protect from our inbound threats, typically coming from email, which is our malware, our viruses, and our spyware. How do we protect and effectively manage that without affecting our users? And all of this needs to be managed and maintained simply and straightforwardly, typically using a console or a scripting environment. And again, we want an environment where the user's expectations that their system will be readily available for them no matter where they happen to reside. So Microsoft 365 Business, again, is going to give you this single solution. It's going to include Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of those sort of desktop apps. It's going to get Exchange at the back end, OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint. You're also going to get a number of business apps, so things like bookings and that are now available. And we're going to get the enterprise features. So we're going to get app protection. We're going to get device management, so we can bring our devices under management and control them and make sure they are compliant. We're going to protect the data on those devices, and we're going to be able to do that in a web-based console if we want. We've also got tools like Autopilot that allow us to do an auto installation of out-of-the-box machines that will deploy Windows 10 to our requirements, along with Office and any other policies we wish to push out there. And again, running the latest version of Office and Windows 10 is going to, again, significantly reduce basically our threat profile. So in summary, again, our Microsoft 365 Business includes the Office 365 Business Premium that you're probably aware of with Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, OneDrive, SharePoint. And then it adds on the enhanced security from the EMS platform. So we get, again, the ability to manage our devices. We get multi-factor authentication, which, again, can also we can also integrate things like preventing copying and pasting from corporate apps to consumer-grade apps. We get information rights management to embed permissions inside our documents no matter where they go. We get data loss prevention to prevent things like credit card, tax file numbers accidentally leaving the organization and potentially warranting a data breach declaration. And we also get the inbuilt protection against the threats that come in from our email. And then, again, we get this ability to manage all of that through a simplified interface. We get the up-to-date. We get the ability to do the installation of our apps. We get Intune. So Intune is part of the Microsoft 365 Business, the full version of Intune. And importantly, we get the additional power of our Exchange Online archiving and protection policies on the mailbox. So that's going to give us effectively an unlimited inbox. It's going to give us legal hold. It's going to give us a range of additional features which are normally associated with enterprise exchange plans. The final thing you'll note there down the bottom, a little bit hard to read, but basically it includes, Microsoft 365 Business includes an upgrade from Windows 7 Professional and Windows 8 and 8.1 Professional to Windows 10 Pro at no cost. So if you have devices out there that are Windows 7 Pro or 8.1, then a free upgrade is available as part of the licensing. Please note that if you have devices that are home, so if you have Windows 10 Home, they are not eligible. You would need to upgrade that to a Pro license before you can utilize what's available from Microsoft 365 Business in that respect. Now, from a partner point of view, all of this is great, but how does it add to your bottom line? Well, more features, more functionality means that there's greater opportunity, obviously, to go in and sell services and support around that. So things like advanced threat protection, data loss prevention, all of that basically means that someone has to configure it. So it doesn't come configured out of the box. It requires policies. It requires someone to apply the best practices to do that. Customer isn't going to do that. It's going to require a reseller to do it. Another advantage is to look at consolidating the number of third-party offerings that you may be using. A lot of those will be covered by a product like Microsoft 365 Business, which includes a number of products, especially around the compliance and security. And again, getting it rolled out to customers quickly and easily through a consistent single interface is great. We've also talked about the ability to upsell the managed services. So because the client no longer necessarily uses on-prem servers, doesn't mean the necessity to change passwords, create users, delete users, manage devices, control security, report on attacks and all that sort of stuff is changed anyway. It's still going to be the case and still going to be required. And in some ways, it's easier to do that from the cloud than it is on-prem. And remember that as the market grows for cloud services, more and more customers are using these services and more are looking for competent resellers who can, again, provide best practices for them, keep their environment secure, but then also look at helping them extend those services beyond the default. So again, we want to help customers move from a world of just sharing attachments to using the full abilities of things like Teams, to using things like Microsoft Stream for video, making all that available and giving those users the opportunity to, again, become more productive with these tools, which are generally included in the license they already have. The move here is, again, as we've mentioned here, is to position yourself as a trusted innovator. Thanks to Microsoft, basically there are new releases, updates, improvements to these products on a very regular basis. That's an opportunity for you to go and talk to your customers, say, look, this is now available. We can implement this. This can improve your security, or we can now do this, which we couldn't before. Importantly, it gives you an opportunity to stand out from the people who are just selling regular Office 365 or just doing the minimum like email. And probably the most important opportunity I would suggest is to address the security concerns. There's just so much in the press. There is so many threats coming into businesses that security is top of mind. Also with our legislative requirements, again, many customers who are in regulated markets like medical and that sort of thing require and are very concerned about having these security protections. So it's an opportunity to go in and speak to them, demonstrate the product and capabilities of Microsoft 365 and give them the solutions they need. So some numbers from Microsoft. Again, there is a percentage increase, obviously, in selling the product, looking at the additional attach rate, so the services you can attach around the product, which has, again, more features. And the idea here is it's a way to go and talk to the customer about mobile device management to improve their security and then extend it into the other options that we have available, things like Power BI, Power Apps, Flow to do automations, as well as the opportunity to grow the revenue base. And according to Microsoft, in US dollars, we're looking at roughly basically a spend from a business around $1,300 US a year for the user on their technology. So that's hardware, that's software, that's management, that allows the user to get their job done. So they're the sort of figures that you can potentially capture as a starting point. And again, think about it in respect of this is an average. And if you can come across a lot of customers, again, who will give you that opportunity. If they're not going to spend it with you, they will probably spend that sort of figure with somebody else. Now, focusing back on the products here, Office 365 will remain available. It serves the features that it does now. Again, it's focused on typically the back-end email, files and folders, and so on. And then we can add a product like Microsoft 365 Business to build on that and also give the ability for advanced management and security, particularly around the devices. So this, again, is a step up from the Office 365 offering. And beyond that, if you wish, there is the Microsoft 365 Enterprise. One of the key differences, as noted here, is the voice connectivity with cloud PBX, and also typically, generally, is aimed at the hybrid environment. So you've still got the option of doing Office 365. The step up is to move probably to a Microsoft 365 Business, expand into the device management and advanced security. And then if you have customers that need more power or need some other features not provided by the other two, then there is the Microsoft 365 Enterprise option. Now, at the end of the day, all of this has to provide benefit to the customer. What's the best way to understand what the benefits are to the customer? Well, the customer's going to start off by getting Word, Excel, PowerPoint, their desktop apps. They're going to get those as the most current version, Office 2016, then Office 2019. When that becomes available shortly, that's included as the upgrade. Those products are updated on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, with new features and enhancements. That's an opportunity to go and speak to customers and hopefully get them interested in what else is available and how you can help them. Things like digital assistant, automation, those products are now being integrated tightly together. The ability to work with things like To Do in Microsoft, again, integrate across the range, give that additional productivity, as well as an opportunity to help your customers understand the benefits it can provide, and that's additional service revenue for you. Importantly, customers get the ability to easily connect with people outside their business. They can share things from OneDrive, from SharePoint, from Teams. They can invite people into Teams to collaborate. They can use things like Yammer if they just want chat. Really good way to do that. Those tools are now available to a business down to a very small business where they used to not be available. They're only enterprise style products. Importantly, it's aimed at bringing everybody together, keeping them on the same page. So again, Teams is a key service that talks to this. Again, it reduces email, it keeps everybody on the same page, and again, it gives people a single app to focus on rather than jumping between multiple services. As noted, the important thing is devices. Not all users are sitting at a desk. Many are frontline workers for the F1 SKU, which works for them. They're out in the field, they're out in the warehouse. They need the same connectivity, they need the same information access, but they're doing so on smaller devices, mobile devices, over 3 and 4G networks. Again, not only do they need access to the information, but how do we secure and control those devices to make sure that they aren't a potential vulnerable point within the organization. And of course, as we've always mentioned, we continue to mention security is top of mind. Devices are very easy to lose, to get stolen, to be compromised. So again, how is that managed? How do you do that today? You need a product to do that. The product that would work best is obviously a product that integrates with Azure AD, with their identity, with all the other services. It's aware of all the other services and allows you to control and update that information from a central location quickly and easily. Now, importantly is, again, how can we manage this? So yes, we can manage this from a web interface, but I would suggest to you that one of the real improvements or the real differentiations with the Microsoft product versus others from third parties is its ability to be basically fully scripted using something like PowerShell. So if you want to run up a best practice, you can create a script and apply that against every tenant. If you want to implement security in a standard way, create a script, run that. And again, you can then take that and run it against multiple tenants. So again, this scripting ability using something like PowerShell is going to give you that leverage, going to reduce your costs and give you a consistent result across your total environment for customers. So we've talked about how you get Exchange, you get Outlook, you get all the standard tools you expect with Office 365. Skype for Business is moving towards Teams. You get all of that ability built in, so none of that is changing. You get the desktop applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You get the ability to store that information in a personal area in OneDrive for Business. You can share that with people inside the organization. You can co-edit, so multiple people can work on those files together at the same time if you wish. Okay, and I think I've lost control there.
Have you?
Okay. That's I'm good again. So again, the idea here is that you have tools like Delve. If you haven't looked at Delve, Delve basically is a single pane of glass across all the information in your Office 365. It's a search engine. This is one of the benefits of putting things in Office 365, on Microsoft 365 and Office 365. It gives you a central location for users to go and do a search. It shows them the documents they're working on wherever they are. It gives them visibility into what others inside their organization are also working on. So again, these tools are built in, automatically configured. If we look at a Windows 10 devices connected to these using Azure AD Connect, we're also going to take advantage basically of the tools on the desktop, their integration with the Office 365, Microsoft 365 environment. We're going to get the ability to work with all these services in a web browser on our desktop on a mobile device. So again, no matter what device form factor you have, you're going to be able to stay productive and get access securely to your information. And the organization is also going to have the ability to control that environment. And if you want, you can take information offline. There is the ability to do offline sync with things like OneDrive and SharePoint, as well as Teams, if that is the way that you want to go. We've got this integration with Outlook, shared calendars, shared mailboxes, but importantly, we're moving to an environment like Teams, where you can create a team, channels within that, you have chats and conversations there, you have a location to share files, and then you can extend that by customizing the look and feel, adding additional tabs to third-party apps, websites, planner, whatever you want. So the idea with this is that it's a single pane of glass for users to work with the information they need to day. It's a interface that looks pretty much similar across all the environments, whether it's a desktop, whether it's an app on the desktop, a web browser, or on a mobile device. So this consistent pane of glass, this consistent tool will give users access to the information they need quickly and easily. Security, as we've mentioned, is a big thing. We want to have BitLocker to protect our machines. We want to use the Windows information protection technology to prevent corporate information being shared in consumer-grade environments. We also get to use things like Windows Hello, basically so that users don't have to type their password every time. They can just basically sit in front of the machine. They get recognized, it will log them in. And then if they do lose their machines or the devices, we have the ability to do a wipe selectively just of the data. So if a user leaves the organization, we can remove the corporate data, knowing that we're not going to delete their personal data. Now, we want information to be centralized. We want it to be in a location that we can manage, that we can apply policies like DLP. We want to be able to protect that inside and outside the organization, and this tool allows us to do it, all controlled by our identity managed by Azure AD. So again, this is the benefit of connecting your Windows 10 machines to an Azure AD environment. And remember that Windows 7 and Windows 8 unfortunately cannot connect to Azure AD directly. That is why the benefits of Windows 10 is that it can connect to that environment directly as well. So we've talked about things like BitLocker, Windows Information Protection, our selective wipe. We've also got app protection. We've got Trusted Boot, and we are seeing a growth in things like Windows Defender as well. So again, we can enforce Windows Defender all from a Intune console directly. Now we've got this product called Autopilot. If you haven't seen Autopilot basically allows us to a user to take a machine out of the box, turn it on, and then basically what will happen is that the device will automatically configure itself. Once the user has identified themselves, it will then apply the Windows settings you've set. It will then roll out the applications that you've set as well. So this is a simple and easy deployment tool for users when they get new machines. And then once that has completed, then all of the management is done again with the console, because that machine has been joined to that environment. It can now be managed by that environment. Now, probably the most important thing when it comes to security is making sure that stuff is kept up to date. You have the ability to ensure that the operating system and the Office, all that software is kept up to date. You get the ability to, again, see this in a single console and potentially push out updates and, again, control that from a single web-based console. So, again, very, very important. So Microsoft 365 Business, again, you may not be aware, but some of the advantages that it does provide is something called Office 365 ATP. This will do advanced scanning of attachments. It basically will open a suspect attachment in a virtual machine and see whether it does bad things. You've got the exploit guard. So again, this will prevent malicious sites attacking your machines. You've got data loss prevention to prevent things like tax file numbers and bank accounts, credit cards leaving the organization. Azure Information Protection Pre-1 allows you to embed the rights using information rights management into a document, so no matter where it's sent in the world, it will be protected. Intune gives us the ability to manage our devices, both iOS, Android, and Windows 10, all from a single console, push out policies for that. Our Exchange Online Archiving gives us a mailbox that can grow past 50, the standard 50 gig. We can now effectively grow our mailbox to whatever size is needed. And of course, we've got our BitLocker enforcement. Now, you'll note that Microsoft 365 Business now includes the ability to work in a hybrid environment. So you can do hybrid joins, you can manage with group policy as you've always done, but also integrate with the advantages of Intune as well. So you can balance that up if you do have a hybrid environment. And announced in the last month or so is now the inclusion of the password write back. So if you have an environment that you synchronize users from an on-prem identity Active Directory to Azure AD, out of the box Office 365 will do this in a single direction up to Azure AD. Microsoft 365 Business now includes the ability for the passwords to be synchronized in both directions. So if you change it in the cloud, it will synchronize it back to on-prem. Change it on-prem, it will synchronize back to the cloud. So that has been another recent addition to the Microsoft 365 Business feature set. So the value statement here is you're probably using a lot of third-party tools that do archiving, data loss prevention, filtering, AV, all that sort of stuff. Again, the consideration here is to look at a product like Microsoft 365 Business that will incorporate these features into a single license, will give you an ability to manage these from a single supplier, and again, will consolidate and remove some of the complexity that may be around using third-party solutions, again, for a very, very competitive price. Now, you'll obviously get the slides after the event. So again, if this is a little hard to read, you will get the details of this so you can go through and analyze it. But in essence, again, I believe the prices maybe need to be slightly adjusted. Basically, get an idea here. So your business premium, standard Office 365 small business SKU is typically $18. Microsoft 365 Business is around a $10 add-on, but you're going to get things like advanced threat protection for your sandboxing attachments, safe links protection. You're going to basically get your password sync. You're also going to get autopilot and the full version of Intune to manage your devices. You're going to get unlimited mailbox. You're going to get Azure Information Protection, DLP, all that sort of stuff, legal hold and so on. So the value statement there is quite good. If you wish to then look at additional options, you'll see that there is Microsoft 365 E3 and E5 and the differences between those products. Again, you can go through the table after this to get all the details. Now, if you want to compare Office 365 E3, which is the enterprise, the standard enterprise SKU in Office 365 versus Microsoft 365 Business, you'll see that the number of differences here are that Office 365 E3, although an enterprise SKU, doesn't include the advanced threat protection or the exploit guard. All right, and it also doesn't include Azure Information, the full Azure Information Protection P1. All right, so again, there are some differences and value statements around Microsoft 365 Business, and you can see the price is pretty close, and Microsoft 365 Business is somewhat a bit cheaper with more features. So again, you would indicate, I think, that that is a value statement. So with that, I think I've covered what I need to cover. Again, remember, you get the slides after the fact. And at this point, I think I'll hand back to Arun to give us the rest of the information.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much, Robert. Great job as always. Now, if anybody that has any questions, feel free to send those into the chat box now, and we'll get those over to Robert to give us the answers live on the webinar. I'll just give you a couple of moments there just to get those questions in. Just while we're waiting for that, as Robert's already mentioned just before, there was a price rise from Microsoft in January. So some of that pricing, I think, did look up to date. But obviously, if you see anything there that looks different, then please let us know. Okay. Okay. What's the best approach for businesses already invested in MacBooks with G Suite and Dropbox?
So I would suggest to you that, again, it's a matter of understanding the customer needs. One of the big differentiation points that Microsoft 365 will bring is the compliance, so the ability to put all of these into a single environment rather than G Suite and a third-party product, again, like Dropbox. You can then apply compliance over them. You also get the enterprise features around the security, things like Azure Information Protection for encrypting your documents, data loss prevention. And I would also suggest that you do get the management of this environment. Now, again, most of the best management you get with obviously Microsoft products, but Intune does allow you to manage Mac, iOS, Android quite effectively. So it will give you that single point of managing that, and also a single point where all your information can live and be secure. And this is very important, I think, in a world that is focused, again, on security. But it is, again, a matter of talking to the client and finding out what their needs are. But I would certainly talk to them and focus on the abilities that Microsoft 365 Business in the security and the management space provide over the combination of products that you've noted there.
Right, okay. I think we've got sort of 10 minutes left, so I'll leave the questions to the end, see if there's any more that come through after my session. I'm just going to give you now just a quick overview on the Ingram Cloud Marketplace. Some of you may be aware that last year we announced some changes with what we call User Experience 1 or User Experience 1, where we're trying to unify the experience for our customers and the customers of our customers. So we've actually made enhancements to the customer control panel and also the reseller control panel late last year. And some of you may have heard about this at the recent Cloud Summit event we ran in October. We've also now made changes in the Ingram Cloud Marketplace, which is our primary ordering tool to order new services such as Microsoft 365 and Office 365. So this only happened last week, so it's very new. The look and feel is quite different. Don't worry if you're still comfortable with the older version, you can still access that. But what we've identified now is we've looked for some of the enhancements in usability to match really that launch that we had the tail end of last year around the reseller control panel, and that's now been brought into the marketplace as well. Also, I was just talking about Cloud Summit. We do have our Global Cloud Summit running in San Diego next month. That's on the 11th to the 13th of March. I know some of you have already registered for that, so we're looking forward to seeing you there. But if anybody's interested in finding out more, the link is included on the website, and feel free to have a look at the marketplace, have a look at the agenda, because it will be a great event. So just very quickly, just to get you across the marketplace, I'll just give you a few slides to get you across that. So you'll see there the look and feel is very different. You'll be able to see there we've got all the same products do still apply. It's just the way that you actually get to them in the first instance. You'll see there in the middle there I've highlighted where it says business applications. You just need to click on that link where it says, I've highlighted there the Microsoft logo, of course, which makes it pretty easy to see. And then from there, if you click on to see all, you'll see on the left there, I've selected Microsoft 365, and that will take you also to the section, I think, which is relevant to this discussion. Then from there, you'll go into Microsoft 365, and you'll be able to see there, for example, Microsoft 365 Business Annual. We've also got the trial version there, and we've also got the 365 F1 that Rob mentioned earlier. If you click on the area that I've highlighted as all plans, you'll also then be able to see the monthly SKUs as well. You also see with the new enhancements now, we do have changes with the margin, and you'll be able to see there that we do now include your reseller margin as well as the list price or the MSRP for those particular products. I think that's a great way for you to save yourself a lot of time, because you'll now obviously be able to see the margin you're making at the time you're placing your order. There I've actually, in this instance here, I've selected E5, the monthly SKU, and I just clicked on the add to cart function there. And you'll see on the top right, I've also marked there where it says add to cart, and you'll see a little icon showing one, which was the item I've just selected. Then from there, you get a breakdown of all the prices and any other add-ons you want to add on to that base product. So for example, the advanced e-storage, the business apps, any of the calling plans, Microsoft Stream, or anything else that you'd like to add in there. You'll also notice for the first time, this is a new feature. It's not come to particularly well on the slide there, but you'll see there's the new chat function. So you're actually going through and you just want some advice on how to place an order, or clarity on something that's obviously preventing you from placing that order. You'll see there's a new feature where you can enter your name, email address, phone number, etc. And we'll actually have one of our agents contact you proactively at the time that you're on that screen, and we'll be able to give you an answer. Now, if it's not an immediate answer, you get a response there and then. There'll be somebody that contacts you pretty much straight away, just to ask you what help that you would need, obviously, to place your order. So that's just by clicking on that chat icon at the bottom there on the right-hand side. Then from there, you can select the particular customer. In this particular case, I've selected a test account, which I've used as an existing customer, just to make it easy. And on the right, you just hit the select button. And then from there, you include your Microsoft partner number or your MPN, just so we know that you're all good to resell and that's all active. Then click on next. Then you provide the Microsoft CSP account number. You'll see that I'll put in there testing Arun with today's date, just to show the requirements there. Also there'll be requirements around the new customer attestation. That's a new requirement for Microsoft regarding the GDPR requirements which are coming through. But in this particular case, I've already met that criteria, so I've ticked that box. So I can confirm that I'm on the latest version of the MCA agreement with Microsoft, so I've clicked on next. Then from there, you'll see that that was the item I selected. I mentioned it was the Microsoft 365 E5, the monthly SKU. And then from there, if you choose to make it easy for tracking when you go back into the reseller control panel. You'll be able to go in and add a purchase order number, or you may want to add a particular project, for example, or actually if you've been given a PO number from your customer, of course you can enter that in to make it easier to search later on in our reporting. So for example, if you'd like to download our cost of goods sold report, the COGS report, it will make it easier to identify particular line items on billing to particular clients and help you to do the billing to your customer. Now, so that was the marketplace. That's now you've placed your order. That will go for provisioning as normal. Just very quickly, I just want to take you across a major announcement that you may have seen in the media last week that talks about a very unique position now for Ingram Micro, which has direct routing through Teams. Also, we know that Microsoft is making a large investment in development around Teams. Skype for Business is going end of life, so obviously that's now the path moving forward. Microsoft 365 gives you access. Teams is now a free offer as part of Microsoft when you buy your core license around the Office or Microsoft 365 products. So we're pleased to announce that we now have a partnership or relationship with a telco called Switch Connect, an Australian organisation. This now gives you a viable alternative to dealing with our friends at Telstra. So you are looking for calling plans with direct routing through Teams. We now uniquely, with the only distributor that has this now in Australia, the ability to access this through Teams and switching on these calling plans. We do have a launch webinar coming up next week. It's 11 o'clock on the 27th of February, and I've included there the details of how you register. If you'd like to know more information prior to the call next week, we do have a process. The sales team have already had a number of inquiries coming through, particularly when we were at Microsoft Ignite conference last week in Sydney. And you're welcome to ask the team about any further information you'd like to know right now. And I'm sure that they'll be able to help you with any questions you have. So hopefully we can get you to register for that one today. Also, just to close off, we always have promotions running, particularly around Microsoft, and the current one around the Office and Microsoft 365. Get yourself for a new tenant on the platform, on the cloud marketplace, a new client. For every new customer you bring on, we'll give you a $50 Visa card for for Office 365, and we're doubling it to $100 for Microsoft 365. So pretty exciting. Great promotion. It does run to the end of March, so you've got about 5 weeks to go on this current promotion. We did have a lot of people take up the offer at the end of 2018, so we know that it's usually well received by our customers. So feel free to get on board on Office and Microsoft 365. All right, I'll just go back now and just check to see if we've got any final questions that have come through. All right, and it looks like we're done. So thank you once again for spending some time with us this morning to hear about Microsoft 365 Business. Thank you again to Rob for taking us through that. And I hope you like the new look and feel of the cloud marketplace. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to contact the team. I'll just include that last slide. You can contact us there on that email address, or there's a general line as well, which is in Sydney on 02-9381. 6735 is our general line to the cloud team. Or if you deal with any of our other account managers across the Ingram Micro business, of course, they'll direct you to us as well, should you have any questions around Microsoft or any other products or services we have on the cloud marketplace. Thank you again for joining us today, and I wish you a pleasant afternoon. Thank you again. Bye for now.